Hi everyone, welcome you all. In the today's video, we will see how to handle JSON files in Java, and especially JSON is very popular format, JavaScript object notation. So this is a format of data representation. Mostly we use in web applications, especially when you read the data from the server or when you send the data to the server. So JSON format is mostly preferred, and it is very lightweight format. And we'll see how can we handle the JSON files in Java. And before going to this, I request everyone to watch the basics of JSON file, like what is JSON and what is JSON object, what is JSON array, and what is a JSON attribute values. So you need to know some basics or fundamental concepts before handling JSON files. So earlier, I already created a new playlist JSON tutorial for beginners, and you can just watch few videos at the beginner level, and you can understand what exactly JSON means and how can we represent the data in the JSON, and what is JSON object, what is JSON array, and what is JSON attribute and values, how can we represent the data in the JSON. So the basic stuff you will able to understand by watching this series. And once you understand, then come back and watch this video. And in this video, especially, I will show you how to read JSON data in Java. And for that, we have a different type of libraries are available in the market. And these three are very popular libraries like Jackson library, JSON library, and JSON simple library. So these are the three popular libraries which are available in the market currently to read the data from the JSON file. So first, let us start with Jackson library. How can we read the data from the JSON file using Jackson library in Java? So for that, we have created new Maven project already. And this is our new Maven project. And in Postman XML, we have to add a dependency, Jackson library dependency. So for that, what we need to do is we need to get that library from the Maven repository. Just go to mvn repository, mvnrepository.com. Okay, and from this, you can just search for Jackson, and you can just find out Jackson. So you can say Jackson library. Okay, this is a Jackson data bind. So this is a library. You can just click on it. Now I'm getting this latest version, 2.16 recently released. I'm just getting 2.15.3 stable version. So I'm just copying this dependency and keep this dependency in Postman XML. And we need to create a new tag called dependencies. And inside the dependencies, we can paste this dependency. So once we added this dependency, now we'll get some external third-party libraries into your project. And once you add this dependency, then just try to update your project once. Just go to Maven and then update project. So once you have updated, you will get third-party libraries, which is JSON bind libraries into your project. So now, once you have done it, now let's see how to read JSON data using Jackson library. So for that, we need a JSON file. So I already have some sample file, which is created under my data folder, employee.json. So all JSON files extension will be .json. And this is a sample data I have. So let us try to understand this data first. Basically, this entire thing is one JSON object. And inside this, there are two fields, first name, last name, address. There are three fields are there. And every field is having a value associated with that. If I look at here, the first name is a field, John is a value, last name is a field, Kennedy is a value, address is a field, and which contains multiple values. So basically the address is a field is representing with JSON array, because this bracket is representing an array. And in this bracket, again, this is a first element we can consider, this is a second element. Again, in the first element, which is again another JSON object, this is again another JSON object. Inside this, again, there are multiple fields, street, city, state, and this is the second object. Inside this, again, there are three fields. So address is a JSON array. So this is simple data I have in employee.json. Now we'll see how to read this data in Java by using Jackson library or Jackson API. So we already added dependency in Postman XML, so which is already there. Now we get all relevant classes and methods from Jackson library. So now let us see how to read this data. So to read this data, the first of all, if I look at this particular JSON data or object, see, first name is one field, last name is another field, address is another field, and which contains again two different objects. So now we need to create a Java class which is exactly matched with this particular structure. Employee.json data structure, exactly our Java class to represent this particular JSON structure. So what our Java class should contains, which contains two variables, first name and last name, and address, and corresponding methods. So we need to create setters and getter methods through which we can operate these variables. And again, if you look at here, first name, last name is the direct fields in employee.json. And here you can look at here, these are the two different objects which are part of address array. So what I will do is I will create a new class, this address as a separate class, so that we can create an object for that address class. And also I will create another class called person. So this entire object is representing one person, first name of the person, last name, address of the person. This is one address, this is a second address. So first of all, I will create a new class called person, which will exactly represent the data in the JSON file. Okay. So go to a new package which I have already created, JSON files. Now inside this, I'm going to create new class, and this class is exactly representing the data which we have in the employee.json. So I will name it as person. And in this class, I will define some variables according to my JSON data. I will define some variable. Let's say I have a first name and last name. So I'm going to create string first name. And also I'm going to create string last name. And also we have another attribute called address, right? So basically the address is having multiple elements. So this is one element and this is one element, means it is one object and this is another object. So for this object, we have to create another class. Okay. And this is one class, and this is one class we will create. And with that class, two objects we have to create. So this is one object and this is another object. Later we will do it. So currently I have two variables. Now I will also create one more field called list of address, because this is address one. This object is representing first address. The object is representing second address. You can have multiple addresses. So I'm taking list here, collection. And what is the type of this list? Address. I'm going to create this address class later. And then I'll representing this address variable. So currently I represent three variables. Later we will create getters and setters for these three variables. And for now, I'm just importing this list from java.util. So these are the variables I have created. Now, to representing this address, we will create another class. Person.java we created. And now I'm going to create another class called address. And this address contains again three fields: street, city, and state. So this particular address class is exactly representing these three fields: street, city, state. Okay, now let me create this. Here I'm creating one string variable, string street. Another string is city. Another string is state. So three variables we created. So this is the class. Now here the address is, what is the type of this address is? List of address. What is this address? This is the type of address. So address contains a street, city, state, right? So this is one object and this is another object. So here basically address is nothing but what? Street, city, state. And you can have a number of addresses. Currently we have two addresses. So I'm taking list is a collection type. So this variable we created with the address type. Okay. So once you created, now we need to create setters and getters, so that we need to operate these variables. So first let me create setters and getters for these three variables. So in Eclipse, we have a shortcut options. As soon as you selected these three variables, you can just go to source and click on generate getters and setters. And you can select the variables, whatever you created, simply say generate. So once you have done it, you can see setters and getters are already generated. So this is for get to street and set to street, get to city and set to city, get to state and set to state. So these are the actual variables which we have created. right? So this is how we can create two methods for each variable. One is for setting the data into variables, other is for getting the data from the variable. So now this address type variable we created in the person class. Okay, now for these three variables also we have to create setters and getters. So let me close this address. Now we want to create setters and getters for these three variables. Now select them, go to source, generate getters and setters, and select all the variables as a generate. Now you can see for these three variables, each variable, two methods have been generated. So this is for getting the first name, setting the first name. This is for getting the last name and set last name. And this is for getting the address. And because when you call this get address, it will return the list of addresses. That is the return type. And this is for setting the address. We want to pass multiple addresses, then it will set the address. And finally, I will override one method called toString, through which I will try to print all the data for the person. So what I can do is I can create, this is a method which is already there in every class. So I'm just trying to override string toString method. And here I'm just trying to return all the data. Like I say, first get first name. Okay. And then concatenate. And then I will call another method, get last name, concatenate, another method, get address. This is another method. So I will give some space between each and every method. I can say after giving some space in the double quotations, I put one comma and again concatenation. And after that, I'll put plus the double quotations. I put some comma and also concatenation. So I'm just going to return first name, last name, and also address. So this is how we can create POJO classes basically for person and address. So person is a main class which is representing all the data in a JSON file. And for this address, we have separately created another class called address. And through that, we have created this variable. Okay. Now, let us see how to read the data from the JSON file. So first of all, we need to understand the data structure inside the employee.json and our JSON file. And accordingly, we can create multiple classes. Sometimes we may need multiple classes. So currently I need only two classes. I'm just created. So now we'll see how to read the data from the JSON file. So for that, I'm going to create main class. I will name it as reading data from JSON using JSON library. So I'm taking this main method and say finish. Okay. So now we'll see how to read the data from JSON file using JSON library. So first of all, from the JSON library, we have a special class called object mapper. So we have to take the help of this object mapper. And I'll name it as object mapper. Object, I'm going to create new object mapper. So we need to import this object mapper from this jackson.databind package. And after that, we need to get the file, JSON file. So where we have created the JSON file under data folder. So to represent this, I'm going to use one file object, file equal to new file. And here we need to specify the location of the file. So here // is representing the current project directory, or else you can say system dot get property of dir user.dir also you can use it. I'm just using data / my file name is employee.json. So this is my JSON file. I'm getting into the file object and then import this file from java.io. Now we need to pass this particular file inside this object mapper. Okay, so how to do this? So the step is we need to read JSON data from the file and map it to the person class. So from this particular file, we have to read JSON data. We have to map it for person class because this person class is exactly representing the JSON data, exact format we have created. So whatever the data we have in whichever format of data we have in the JSON, in the same structure, we created a new Java class. Now we need to map it. So how to map it? By using this object mapper. So for that, what you can do is, we can just say read JSON data from the file and map to person class. So this is the step we are going to do. So for this, what we need to do, we need to take the help of object mapper object. We already created this above object mapper. This is the one, object mapper, and dot, there is a method called read value. And inside this, we have to pass two parameters. One is the file, which is representing the JSON file. And the second is we need to map this file to JSON file, right? This file is representing the JSON file. And now the second parameter should be person class. So that we need to specify person dot, this is a class. So I can put as a class. Now this will return a person object. So that you can store in a variable called person and person. So this will throw some exceptions. Just add this, add throws declaration. Okay. So in the first step, we open the file in the file object. Then by using object mapper, we map the JSON file into our Java class. Now this person is our Java class. So once we have this Java class, we can directly access the data, right? So now let us try to access the data. Access data. So how to access the data is directly by using person, we can access the data. Person dot, can say get first name. So when you call this method from the person object, I'm able to get first name. So I'm directly printing this person dot, I can put first name. First name is person dot get first name. So person is an object of person class. So if you create an object, through object, we can access all the methods from the person class. So mapping is already done with this statement. JSON file is already mapped with the person object. Now we can directly get the data from the Java object. So first name, and then we have last name, person dot, instead of get first name, you can just print get last name. And then we have address. So how can we print address? Because address is having multiple fields, right? If I go back and see the JSON file, so address is basically JSON array, and which contains a multiple JSON objects. So now we need to read each and every object from this array one by one. And again, from every JSON object, we have to extract attribute and values, key and values. So we need to write a looping statement. We cannot directly get the data from the address. So first name, last name are the direct attributes or direct fields in JSON file. So we can capture. Now we need to get the address from JSON array. So how to get them? We need to write one for loop. So here I can write one for loop. Let's say from the person, when I call get address, so this will return multiple addresses. Get address method will return list of addresses. Again, address means what? Address contains the three attributes: street, city, and state. So first it will return the first attribute from the JSON. If you look at here, so first time in first round of iteration, I'm writing this for each loop. When I say get address, person dot get address, the first JSON object will be returned. In the first JSON object, we have three attributes again. So this entire object we have to store in a variable here. So that variable I will define as address, and the type of this variable should be address type, address class type. You got my point? So here we already created address.java, right? So with this we are representing, because this is exactly mapped with the address class. So when you get this object from the address array, we are storing into a variable. The type of the variable should be address. So now we need to read each individual values like street, city, address, street, city, state from this address object. So how can we extract it? We can simply say system.out.println, I can say first I'm going to print street, and how to extract the street from the address dot get the street. So this is a method which we have created. So this is the first method. Okay, now next one is city, next one is a state. So we can extract all the values like this. So first one is street, second one is city, and third one is state. So we have to call those methods accordingly. I'm just calling address dot get city, and here I call address dot get state, right? One more bracket. All right, so these are all addresses. I'm just going to write one more simple statement, addresses. Okay, so this is how we can extract the data from the object. Now I'm going to close my JSON file. So what I have done so far, let me repeat once again. So first we need to open the file. This is basically representing the JSON file, and that JSON file data we need to map with Java class. So if you want to map with the Java class, the Java class structure also exactly match with the JSON file data. So according to the JSON file data, so this is entire one object. Inside this, there are two fields and one JSON array is available. So to match with this JSON structure, we created a new class, which is called person class. And internally, we need address also, which is basically representing JSON array. For that, I have created another class. Okay, two classes are required. Now come to the main class. I have opened the file. Then we map that file with the JSON. We have to map JSON file with the Java class. So person is a Java class, and this file is representing JSON file. So to map with, we have to use special class called object mapper, and that object dot read value, we have to pass file, JSON file, comma, and which class you want to map. So the person class I want to map. So once you map, it will return the person type of object. This is basically Java object. So once we get a Java object, we can easily get the data from the Java object by just calling the methods. First name I'm calling, last name I'm calling, and address is basically an array. So that's the reason we have to write a looping statement to read the data from array. So get address will return address type, and it will return each and every address one by one. From that address, I am retrieving street, city, and state, and so on. So this is how we can simply write a Java code to read the data from the JSON file using JSON library. So let us try to execute this code and see how it is going to read. Okay, now we can just observe this is my first name and last name, and this is the addresses, street, city, and state. Right, so it is successfully read the data from the JSON file. So this is how we can simply read the data from JSON file using JSON library, which is also one of the popular method which we can use in our projects. So in the next video, I'll show you how to read JSON file data using JSON library and also by using JSON simple library. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.